Hello CT, how are you doing? Yeah, Spain was good. Looks like you're battling the heat out there in Florida, you poor dear. I feel for you. Not that much though. Off to the Ryder Cup next week, so excited to come over and be nearer to you. Yeah, we've got swings to review in the meantime. We've got six of them, 3 from down the line, 3 from face on. Let's have a little look-see. And again, with a little caveat not to be, overly technical. The first shot was the 3-wood. I think putting the weight of your body more in the middle of your feet, as you alluded to. Let's just have a little look here. Got a little vertical line. You can see your centre of gravity is vertically above your kneecaps. That's just the way we like to see it. Might be part of the reason you played well. If you played 18 over par, played like an 18 handicapper, then I'm not terribly surprised. Things going well. I think you're probably more routine than you give credit for. So, for example, putting this target line down every time gives a lot of continuity to what you're about, and you're quite pedantic about your ball position now, and you're sensitive to your body weight. So there's a lot of routine going on there, possibly that you're not giving yourself credit for, which I think would be a shame. Obviously, it's not about hitting perfect shots. It's how good your bad ones are. And your bad ones in this instance look to be pretty good. You 4 times in 6 shots that I can see reported that the outcome was pretty decent. We'll get to specifics in a minute. If we look at your down the line swing, we pop a little plane line in there. Great job with the camera work, by the way, getting the camera in the right position to give us continuity in our reflections. Club still goes a little bit deep, a little bit around you, the shaft of the club pointing behind you there. We'd want to see the left arm more in this position and the club pointing back towards us. You're interrupting me with your message there, as you can see on the screen. And I've just clocked that you want to do something a bit different. Well, I have a plan, my dear chap. And I'll come to that towards later in this review. What's lovely is further on into your backswing, the mass of the club finds that plane line, the butt of the club there in your hands perfectly on plane. So the club's gone a little bit underneath, and consequently that's why it points halfway back, a little bit behind you, and you can see a sort of parallel relationship with the club pointing in a similar direction on the top of the backswing as it was halfway back, which is very consistent with what you do next, which is deliver the club a little bit above the plane you went back on, but almost perfectly back on plane, which is a really good job. Doesn't matter too much if you dally from that plane a little bit, but you can see the way the club's uniting with that plane, smashing through impact and travelling through a little bit above that plane. So very slightly under to above, slightly in to out, which is a constituent part of hitting a nice solid right to left shot. So, things going well there. Mostly good things. So keep doing what you're doing routine wise. Let's have a little look at this 7-iron shot, and really the same is true. The same trends are true. Weight distribution is good, sort of back of your armpits above your kneecaps. Great job. And you can see the club working backwards, underneath a little bit round you still. We could go more directly back, club going a little bit more vertically in terms of the feel, and that's why the club points to the right at the top, because we currently go a little bit inside. But I must mention, better job with your right knee here, right leg not straightening so horribly at the end of the backswing, and that's allowing you to transition better and get into decent impact conditions. We can see loads of left leg, loads of glutes, and elbow and hip quite close together. Really good signature hallmarks of good impact conditions. So keep up the good work with your forward swing sequence. A lot of continuity there with your 3-wood. Now, we did lose your balance on the 4 hybrid a little bit, sort of staggered backwards. After this one, you can see, so not quite as perfectly poised, and as a result the execution is always going to be a little bit hampered by a lack of balance. But again, good camera angle to see good continuity here. Your target line's in place, that's good routine. That would be imaginary rather than real when you play the golf course. Club goes a little bit under, arrives on plane, shaft points a little bit to the right, impact not quite as rotating. I think that's due to your balance not being quite right, so it will limit your rotation and it won't be quite as good. So that would tend to result in things like your hands and arms having to be a bit more active than in a perfect world. But not too bad, mate. Keep up the good work there. Let's look at front on. Great ball position, shaft not leaning too aggressively forwards, which I've criticised you for in the past. So this is nice. Let's see if we keep a relationship with impact. We don't want that left shoulder further forward, and we don't want that head further forward than that line at impact. Now, I do recall you saying this one was a bit of a hook shot. So perhaps the hands and arms got a little bit overactive. The hook would be caused by a face that's closed to the swing path. Now, that's closely linked to your other driver shot, where if you early release, if you go a little bit in transition, if you go a little bit hard at it and you change direction fast, you can see the altitude of your club was quite nice. It went through the space the ball was in and you controlled it. We didn't get involved with the ground. But we did close the club face. Now, that's a twin cousin. I'm going to skip to the last driver shot. I'm going to skip past that pitching wedge shot and just mention that we don't see any loss of height. Let's draw a better colour line in here. We don't see any loss of height from you. Whoops. And that would be very important in the context of whether the lowest point of your swing, whoopsie, the lowest part of your swing was about the right height. The altitude of your club, if you will, would be lower if your head was lower at impact, or if the middle of your swing was lower at impact, and it obviously is not. So what we'd have to do is we'd have to move our attentions to a secondary influence. So when we start forwards, if you start forwards hard and your right arm straightens more than usual, it might only be a small amount, a couple of inches or so, we graze the ground before we hit the ball. It's a bit like a bumpy landing for a flight into Heathrow or whatever. It'll drop kick it a little bit. The aeroplane hits the ground a little bit haphazardly, a little bit hard, and just a little bit of a mistiming. We'd have, in a perfect world, not release the club early, because when you early release, you can flip the club over and it closes too much, and you can also find you hit the ground before the ball. So they're very close twins. Just watch out for that. Try and start your forward swing as smoothly in terms of the ramping up of energy as you start away from the ball, and that was mostly the case in most of your swings. So a little bit hasty, a little bit probably keen to give it a whack. And I think it's funny when you said about the previous driver shot being a little bit more kind of calm and smooth and not trying to leather it, that didn't necessarily lead to a perfectly square club face. So it's not all about just sheer slowing it down. It's more about arriving the club so it's square at impact. And if you keep trending close, you've got to feel like the face is a little bit open at impact, and that should help you balance things out. So a couple of little caveats and provisos there. Let's look at this pitching wedge shot, which was pretty damn perfect actually. You'd set up keenly to make sure your ball position was correct. You've got a slight forward lean to the shaft, which is totally appropriate for this shot. Lovely pivot, no gaining or losing of height, terrifically. Good impact conditions. We can see the rotation going on in your body. Really, really good. Keep up the good work there, mate. The rest, I'll do a little piece to camera right now. So over to me in the studio. Hi, Maestro. I'm going to do this bit without even getting a club in my hand, and that will avoid any overly technical thoughts or deeds. The first half of this video stands alone, or stands up for itself. I think having just reviewed, literally as I was doing this video, you pinged me a couple of messages, and certainly one of those messages suggested we do things a little bit differently, which I have to say I agree with. Maybe for slightly different reasons than you're thinking. I think, yeah, we can compare and contrast your swing to this person and that person, but it's you who's got to swing the golf club. Maybe there's some physical reasons you can't move the club in the same way that Tiger Woods does, or this. I think actually in the first half of this video I might already have gone so far as to indemnify the progression you've made. There are some very distinct improvements in your swing, and I think perhaps we're just starting to see the benefit of those, the steadiness, the greater continuity, the predictability which comes from thinking about things and doing things in more or less the same way. Targeting's way better. Okay, the path of your backswing's still a little bit kind of could use some tidying up, but your impact conditions are decent, your balance and your rhythm are pretty consistent. So, I think we've got to give praise where it's due. Now, when it comes to doing things differently, I wouldn't so much just carry on, but from a slightly different prism or through a slightly different filter, look at your swing again and figure out what's going wrong with your swing, because evidence would suggest if your scores are half decent and your scoring isn't that good, where could we pick up most shots? Well, 40% of the shots you play on a golf course are with a putter, and I haven't seen you with a putter in your hand. I haven't seen any chips, any pitches, any sand shots. I haven't seen any of that. And that's a massive part of the game that is just one big grey area for me. And no excuse to think of this as just a swing analysis for both of us. It's more of a game analysis. I would agree with that. I think what we've got to do is you've got to start providing me with some data, buddy. I need to maybe take account of, and I'll send you a little screenshot of this, but we want to take account of what the benchmark is for, say, that 12 handicapper who's getting around a few shots lower than you, in terms of how many fairways does he hit, how many greens does he hit, how many up and downs does he make when he's in proximity to the green, how many times does he get the ball up and down, or he's in the sand, how many times does he get it up and down from the sand, how many putts does he take per round. And we can go into more depth even than that, but I would say those big 5 statistics are the main ones. And we might be missing a trick. I don't know for sure. I know a good deal about your swing, but I don't know a lot about how you're creating those scores, how you're how you're scoring. You might score 18 over par for 2 rounds, but you might do it a completely different way. Now, I'm sure you'll have a much stronger take on that than me because you're there, but I want you to start actually noting down how many fairways you've hit in a round, how many greens you've hit in a round, how many up and downs you make, how many sand saves you make, and how many putts you take for the round. And what we'll start to do, if there's a glaringly obvious area where you maybe have felt okay and you've thought to yourself, well, I'm performing quite well in that area, might be that we need to raise our expectations and ask more of you. There might be other parts of your game where we're over-delivering and we can kind of, take a little bit of a chill pill, and it's not very healthy if you think you've got to be like immaculate, and if all you ever do is watch a Sunday, round of a golf tournament on TV and those players are playing stellar golf and you're thinking, I've got to be like that. It doesn't actually, you don't have to be that good. There's such a thing as good enough shots, and there's keeping the ball in business, but you were describing how I think you'd taken, you made 3 bogeys and a par, and even one of those bogeys you could have saved. But I concede, it's not great if you're a tennis player to whack it into the net. You're not going to compete for the point. But we're not hitting it out of town every single time we hit it, and sometimes we have got to concede that bogey is going to happen if we get into trouble, and as you hinted, trying to be a hero can sometimes compound the error. But I want some data. I want to know, and I want to see, set me up some chip shots next month, set me up some putts, show me how you do business there. Maybe we, even though we're not hemorrhaging massive amounts of shots perhaps around the greens, maybe we could save a few by being a little bit more assassin-like around the edge of the greens. Maybe if we were a little bit more demanded, a little bit more from you around the greens, rather than serene progress from tee to green, like you're going to hit every single green and that's the only way you're going to lower your scores. I think we've got to scramble some scores. We've got to pick up shots where we can. I as a kid had a healthy respect for short game because I couldn't reach the damn green. So how did I whittle my handicap down to single figures as a young teenager? It's because a lot of the time I didn't have the strength or the power to reach the greens. So the only way I was going to make par was by super tidy short game. It might be a bit of a cliche, but quite frankly, we really need to identify where our weak spots are and come up with ways, and I think that's your goals. It's not the goal to make your swing prettier, it's the goal to make your game more functional and keep the ball in business. We're doing that, it seems, with your long game, but again, I'm totally in the dark about your short game. You may tell me it's good enough, but the disparity between what you think is good enough and what actually is good enough might be quite 2 different things. I'm just speculating. I don't know. When I know, I'll stand down. I'll concede that when you are showing me some short game which outdoes the benchmarks I'm going to send you on our WhatsApp thread, then absolutely I'll focus in again on your swing if that is evidently what it's going to take. But I don't know. So I need the intel. I need some data back to me. But the swing's shaping up, buddy, and the routine is looking pretty decent. I'd keep doing what you're doing, keep being accountable for the qualities that we've looked at over time. It wouldn't be difficult right now to look at any of the swings in this video and compare them to the earliest videos and compare for yourself. You can see the greater improvements there. Now we don't have to worry too much about losing sleep about whether we look like Tiger Woods. I'm sure Tiger won't lose much sleep worrying about whether his swing looks like Rory McIlroy or something like that. It's certainly not these days. Okay, my dear chap, coach out for the time being. Keep up the good work in the majority of ways, progressing nicely. But again, it'd be easier to maybe look to statistics to help us figure out where we're missing a trick or two. All right, my dear chap. Matrix to follow. See your WhatsApp thread. Take care.